Wow, what a crowd. You can see the numbers from up here.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone that walked down from Hyde Park this morning. I was very proud to join you. I was at the end and we stretched for about 1 kilometre. Thank you very much.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be part of it.
Like everyone here today, I love my country. And I'm sure all of you here have a story about how your grandparents or great-grandparents or how even yourselves came to this country.
Yes.
Back in the 1800s, my great-great-great-grandfather lived in a place called Blackpool, where electricity hadn't been invented. And to keep themselves warm at winter, they had to burn the horse manure and the coal. And through most of the year, it was cold and bleak and dark. And he read a story in a magazine about a country called Australia, where the skies were blue and where the soil was golden and where the waters were crystal clear. And they decided they wanted to try and migrate to Australia. They sold everything they had with a few of their friends. They only had enough money to make it far as Cape Town. And when they got to Cape Town, they stayed there and they worked for a year, and they sent an advance party of 2 to come to our great country to see if they should continue their journey. A month later, they got a letter through back to South Africa, which said 6 words.
Come on down.
And it said, "Come as fast as you can." And since that, over that 100 years, we have lived in the greatest country of the world up until today. Now I ask you, if you wanted to wreck our country, if you wanted to take away our prosperity, if you wanted to take away the hope and opportunity for our children, what would you do? The first thing you would do if you wanted to do that is you would go after our national competitive advantage, and that is our low electricity prices. You would demonise electricity, you would demonise coal-fired power, and you would do everything you could in your power to drive up the cost of electricity, and that is exactly what this government has done. We in this country should have the lowest electricity prices in the world. But because of this rotten government, we have the highest electricity prices in the world, and they want to make it higher and higher and higher.
Traitor Gillard! Traitor! Traitor Gillard!
Did you pay your tax?
That's the carbon tax for you. It's working already. Pay your bill! You didn't pay your bill, right?
What happened?
That's what will happen if we don't stop this tax.
That's right.
That's the first day. What's going to happen the rest?
Oh, we've already had brownouts.
Sorry guys, we lost
If you've got computers, you ever have a brownout, turn them off.
Okay. The other thing you would do, if you wanted to wreck our country, you would burden our next generation with debt. And that is what this government has done.
That's right.
They have turned a $20 billion surplus that they inherited that was in the bank into a $175 billion deficit. And what they will tell you...
Great, power's back on. You see, we've had our first carbon tax blackout.
I was saying, in 4 years, this government have run up the 4 largest budget deficits in our nation's history.
That's right.
A combined total of $175 billion. Now what Mr. Swan will tell you, don't worry, we are returning to surplus. Let's just take him on his word. That surplus is $1.5 billion. So what that will mean, the combined deficits won't be $175 billion, they'll be $173.5 billion that you will all owe. So what that means, in the next 4 years, over the forward estimates, we as a country, every taxpayer here, we have to take from you in taxes close to $30 billion just to pay the interest.
That's right.
The World Bank.
$30 billion before we have 1 cent for schools, 1 cent for roads, 1 cent for our hospital, 1 cent for our aged cares, 1 cent for our kids with disabilities, we have to take $30 billion to pay the interest, and most of that goes overseas.
Yeah, the World Bank, the IMF.
The other thing you want to do if you want to wreck our country, you would run down our defences.
That's what they're doing.
We have a proud history of our defence force.
Yeah.
This year, this coming financial year, our defence spending will be at the lowest levels of GDP since the year of 1938. That fateful year. And that's what our government has done.
Treason.
The other thing that you would do, if you hated our nation and you wanted to wreck our nation, you would make an attack on small business.
Yeah.
And that is what this tax does. It's while the government says, oh, it's only the largest 500 so-called big polluters. It's the small business that gets no compensation. It hits small business right in the neck. It drives a heart through our small business. Under this Labor government, we are now seeing 300,000 people less employed in small business, but tens of thousands of more public servants in places like the Department of Climate Change. But worst of all, if you wanted to wreck our country, what you would do, you would scare our kids. You would make them afraid for the future. We should be telling our kids, you live in the greatest country of the world. This is the best place that you can have. You have more hope, freedom and opportunity than anywhere else in the world. But what this government is doing is telling the opposite. They are telling them that our modern industrial society is bad. They are telling them the polar bears are going to die. Our sea levels are going to rise. They are scaring our kids. That is the most shameful thing they are doing. But the way they are doing it is with lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. That's right. Of course, we heard what Bronwyn said when the Prime Minister stood up and she stared down the lens of the camera before the last election. And she said, there will be no carbon tax under a government that I lead. And we all know that she lied.
Liar! Hang the bitch!
And when we asked our Prime Minister, what is this tax for? Explain to us what this tax is for. And we hear that mantra, we are taking action on climate change.
Bullshit.
And then when we ask her, well, by how much will the temperature, how much will this tax lower the temperature? And you know what she says? Oh, that's a silly question. Why are you asking it?
She doesn't know.
One thing we must remember, this tax is a poisonous, toxic tax. Once it gets into our system, it goes up and up and up every year. Today is just the start. As Tony said, it's a python squeeze.
That's right.
That will get tighter and tighter and tighter.
Taipan.
We're $23 a tonne today. By the year 2030, on the Treasury's own estimates, the price is over $300 a tonne.
That's right.
That is the future we have under this Labor government. Now, we have signed, every coalition member that goes to the next election will sign a blood oath to get rid of this tax. And Tony Abbott has promised the very first order of business of a new coalition government, the first order of business will be to repeal this rotten and toxic tax.
Let her blood be in my body.
Now, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today. It's a great patriotic effort to see all the signs and the effort that everyone's made. But the job doesn't finish today.
No.
We must keep this pressure up. We must maintain the rage all the way through to the next election.
Like Bob Chicken said, maintain the rage.
Every single person here today has a patriotic duty until that next election is called. I want you to get out there and talk to your friends. I want you to get out there and talk to groups in your sporting groups and your community and let them know how rotten this tax is. And when it comes to election day, I want you standing at the polling booth with a sign, get rid of the carbon tax, because the next election is a referendum on the carbon tax and we're going to get rid of it. Thanks a lot.